The connection between being scapegoated and people pleasing isn't obvious from the outside. People pleasers are usually described as too agreeable, too accommodating, too afraid of conflict. What that description misses is where it came from. If you were the scapegoat in your family, your people pleasing didn't come from a personality flaw. It came from a very specific type of training. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what that training was. I'm Jerry Wise, and for over 45 years, I've helped hundreds of thousands of people heal and get their family out of them by practicing self-differentiation. The process of becoming your true self and releasing the false self you were trained to be in your family of origin, so that you can finally experience clarity, peace, and lasting freedom. Number one, as the scapegoat, you were punished for being real. There was a version of you that was too much, too emotional, too truthful, too aware, too disapproving of the dysfunctional side of the family. The real you created a problem in the family. The scapegoat role required a version of you that the family could point to as the issue, and the real you kept getting in the way of that. Every time you showed up as yourself or showed how you really felt or saw reality as it really was, you got punished. So you started editing your real self. So you learned to be whatever the room or the system needed, what people wanted to see. The real you stayed back while a more manageable version went out to meet people. People pleasing, at its core, is just that, the habit of sending a version of yourself you calculated would be accepted, because the real version of you will not be accepted or will probably get you into trouble. Number two, as the scapegoat, you learned that agreement was the fastest way to stop being the target. When conflict landed on you in the family, it stayed. Disagreeing didn't lead to a resolution. It led to more conflict, more blame, more isolation. You figured out that agreeing made things stop. You agreed not because you meant it, but because it worked. Agreement was a functional tool for making yourself less of a target, and you started using it. Actually, agreement can be a powerful tool to control others, and it really can. Codependent No More, the book by Melody Beatty, Codependent No More, How to Stop Controlling Others and Start Caring for Yourself. For the scapegoat, being agreeable was a way to survive in a dysfunctional, blaming family. And agreeableness was a way to get the spotlight off of you. And today, you still do it. We carried this behavior and pattern into adulthood. When someone says something you don't agree with, the disagreement is there, but what comes out of your mouth is something softer or nothing, or oh yeah, you're probably right. You've learned to hold your actual position privately and perform something more acceptable publicly. I'm not saying that's always bad, but if it tends to be the norm, then it's a problem. Certainly, I don't share my genuine, real feelings with everybody I come across in every situation at all times. We don't do that, and I don't think that's appropriate. But if you're people-pleasing and managing what you share about how you really feel 99% of the time and withholding that, then that can be a real problem for your own sense of self and how others impact you and how you deal with that system, that relationship system. The people around you think they know what you think, but many times they don't know what you think. Number three, as the scapegoat, your needs were treated as a problem. When you had needs in the family, they were inconvenient or evidence of something wrong with you. You were too sensitive, too demanding, too needy. The message, whether it was said directly or just lived out around you, was that needing things created problems. So you started doing the math. What does wanting something cost? And you decided that the cost was too high. And often now you decide the cost is still too high. Now you act like you don't have any needs. You deflect when someone asks what you want. You say you don't mind. When you do have a preference or needs, you arrange your life around other people's needs with a fluency that looks generous from the outside, but is self-denying on the inside. I think of an example in which there were some folks that I knew and they had a son, and both the parents knew they had not been great parents. They were good parents, but they were not great parents for their kids growing up. And one of their sons, they felt, he is just not in touch with his inner, he just wants to avoid his inner emotions and doesn't want to be known. And that's a real concern for them now that he's just launching into his own college or career and that sort of thing. And so he was going to a dance, and I think maybe a fraternity dance or something that was hosted. He had a girl that was going to go with him, and so they were happy about that. That's great that you have someone to go and enjoy themselves. He goes, the girl doesn't go, and mom then asked him, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Does that bother you that she didn't go? And he basically said, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. And no, it was fine. Everything was great. And again, the people-pleasing part, in other words, stay away from my inner life. There's nothing I can do about it now. Mom didn't ask, is there something more you can do about it now? She wasn't asking that. She was just asking how you felt, because as mom, she might feel, oh, that's kind of crummy that I was expecting to go with her, and then she's not. And I might feel some feelings about that. Not a big important thing, but he was staying away from anything that would prompt being known, causing a problem, have to talk more about a situation, and that can occur as well. Number 4, as the scapegoat, you were blamed before you could speak. In some families, the scapegoat is blamed before the conversation even starts. The verdict arrives before the evidence. You walked in already guilty and convicted, or convicted and guilty. I don't know. Maybe it was the look on their face when they saw it was you. Maybe it was how quickly your explanation became irrelevant. Or you experienced family mobbing, which is bullying by group. You learned that your version of events didn't really matter because the outcome was already decided. Now you apologize before anyone accuses you. You get out in front of it. The apology comes out of a reflex before you've even had time to think about whether you actually did something wrong or didn't. You over-explain. You provide more context than the situation needs. You anticipate blame and try to neutralize it before it lands. You're doing it because your nervous system learned early that you were going to be found guilty anyway, and we are still now trying to get ahead of it. Often when we feel an urgency to try to get ahead of it, or ahead of the gossip, or ahead of the blame, or ahead of the accusation, we are often already put in our place. Because if we're in that position, and I call that an emotional location, if we're in that emotional location where we're trying to get out ahead of things, not that there aren't times it might be good to get out ahead of things, we are often already in not a great place. Defending, arguing, pushing back are often not effective means of getting out of the scapegoat role. I was a part of an organization where I did feel like I was being scapegoated. And what's interesting is the more you plead your case, in some ways, you're also communicating maybe the more guilty I am. And that's how people receive it in emotional systems. This requires another type of finesse and changing the direction of the relationship's use of the two forces that are always at work in relationships: togetherness and separateness. There's always togetherness. There's always a pull towards separateness, always a pull towards togetherness. In every relationship, you cannot avoid that. And that if we acknowledge that, and for example, if we argue, defend, react, complain, blame, we're actually not creating distance or healthy separateness. We are actually intensifying the enmeshment or togetherness force in the relationship. The more I hate you and communicate I hate you and say that on Facebook and send you texts that are, mean, the more I do that, the more I'm pushing us together. It is a too much of a togetherness thing happening. And if they win by me staying in this too much togetherness role, if they win, they can control my inner emotional thinking and feeling process. Let me give you another example. If I can get you to hate me or be angry with me or upset with me, then I set up a relationship in which you then are pursuing me through your anger, blaming, hate. And narcissists want you to pursue them either with admiration or dislike or upsetness. Either brings you into their orbit. And that's why neutrality is so important. That it's not too much togetherness and it's not too much separateness that resolve the conflict within us. It's the third option of neutrality. I don't care. It doesn't matter. And I learned that when I was in this organization, and I learned that to be able to be more neutral. And I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to. And it lessens the impact of the people who are causing trouble for me or for others. This may sound complicated or even confusing. And I understand that in the Road to Self program, I do try to describe that. I describe this and talk about this to help you use the dynamics of relationships and human relationships to keep you out of others' emotional clutches. As I teach in my Road to Self program, the work of changing this role is not to get it out of the family. You know, how can I make the family not see me as the scapegoat? You're going to waste lots of years trying to do that. But to get it out of you, and this is done through the work of self-differentiation. The scapegoat role can be a form of emotional, mental, and even physical abuse. While being the scapegoat in a family is very real and is often a mobbing dynamic, and that's what scapegoating is. It's this group of the family scapegoating you. It's that mobbing kind of relationships. We, as the narcissistic family, unconsciously all agree, and this is the mobbing part. We, as the narcissistic family, unconsciously all agree that to keep the blame or responsibility away from us, we choose Mary to scapegoat. This shift of responsibility relieves our inner stress, and keeps the spotlight away from us. We will sacrifice Mary to keep the emotional balance of the family so we do not have to change or become more healthy or become more insightful or become more responsible. And I might mention, people sometimes get confused when I say narcissistic family. I'll repeat that again about that concept. The concept does not mean everybody in the family is a narcissist. No different than, say, an alcoholic family. Not everybody in the family is an alcoholic, but everyone organizes themselves emotionally, mentally, behaviorally around the alcoholic. And so it becomes an alcoholic family. But it doesn't mean everybody has the addiction of alcoholism. Same with a narcissist, a narcissistic family. You have a narcissistic family if they are pulling the strings and calling the shots, and everybody's organizing around them, even if they're not narcissists. As the scapegoat, you were the one nobody checked on. There were people in the family who got attention, care, concern. When something went wrong for them, the family noticed and may have responded. When something went wrong for you, it was either ignored or treated as further evidence of your role, scapegoat. You learned to manage on your own because nobody was coming. The cavalry was not coming for you. Now you make sure nobody else feels that way. You check on people, you notice when someone goes quiet, and you look like warmth, and sometimes it can look like things are warm or caring, but underneath it, you still are the child who needed someone to notice and that they didn't. You're giving what you didn't receive, and that impulse is driving a significant portion of your people pleasing today. Because if our need for being seen, being cared about, loved, we might then go overboard to do that to everyone else in the hope of getting it or earning it or hustling for it. And again, I like Brene Brown's concept of hustling for love or hustling for self-esteem, hustling for acceptance. Something to remember: what you are good at or good at giving is many times what you lacked growing up. I'll let that sit. You can think about that. You can agree or disagree, but that might be a possible open door for you. Number 6, as the scapegoat, your place in that family was always conditional. You didn't have a secure position in the family. There was no unconditional belonging. Your place depended on your behavior, your role, your compliance, your words, how you expressed yourself, when you expressed yourself, how often you expressed yourself. When you stepped out of it, you felt the withdrawal. You were never quite sure where you stood, which meant you were always monitoring and always adjusting. You're still trying to earn it everywhere you go, in friendships, at work, in relationships. There's a low level of anxiety that lives just under the surface. Are they still okay with me? Did I do something wrong? What do they need from me right now? I do work with a lot of people pleasers or codependents, people pleasers, or people who they've just had to abandon their self to get acceptance or love or caring from other people. And I oftentimes will say, because that's your bent, because that's the way you tend to be, it's probably no risk to try to be someone who's not that. I would like you to go and be more disagreeable. And they go, well, I can't do that. Then people won't like me. No. We can go into all of that. And the issue is, you're way overboard. Here's being selfish. Here's being people-pleasing. If you choose to do some disagreeableness, why don't you be a problem causer? Why don't you, in an innocent and not bad way, it can move you more towards the inner and the middle part of being healthy by pushing the symptom, we might say. Then, go to work and cause some trouble. Not enough that it hurts anybody horribly or causes a financial disaster. But there's nothing wrong with being, what happens if you're such a people pleaser, then if sometimes you go, well, I'm not sure I would do that, everybody is aghast. Oh my gosh, they thought, oh, Jerry's got some disagreement with this. He never has disagreement. The reason why it's so technicolor and why it gets such big attention is because I'm out of balance over here. I want to be able to disagree or cause a problem in a positive way. And people don't go, oh my gosh, that's so unlike Jerry, because then people will see you as more human. And also I think it adds to trust and things like that. Not necessarily with the narcissistic parent. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in our own recovery process. The people pleaser comes out because you never fully believed your place is secure. And the strategies you built to earn your position in that family are still running. Number 7, as the scapegoat, you were only safe when you were useful. Safety in that family had a price. It wasn't unconditional. You discovered that when you were needed, when you were performing a function, when you were helping or making someone's life easier, or managing their emotions or thoughts, you were less of a target. Being useful provided a kind of cover. It made you less visible to whatever was coming next, which was the closest thing to safety you could get. It is very confusing and difficult for a child to learn safety is earned, or safety is something that comes and goes. This foundational need was never really secure. Here we find the beginning of trust issues, confidence issues, and self-esteem issues. As a result, usefulness became the currency. You help before you're asked. You offer before the need is stated. You make yourself indispensable in relationships, at work, and in every room you enter, because somewhere underneath, your nervous system learned that the cost of not being useful is exposure. In your case, the people-pleasing runs deeper than waiting to make others happy or wanting to make others happy. It runs all the way back to the equation, useful equals safer, and certainly not being is safe. Number 8, as the scapegoat, you were never allowed to have a reaction. Emotional reactions in your family had consequences. If you were upset, you were seen as being dramatic. If you were angry, it was proof that you were problematic and dysregulated. And of course, the only one who was identified as dysregulated was the scapegoat. If you cried, it was manipulation. The scapegoat role required you to absorb things without visibly reacting, because any visible reaction could be turned against you. You learn to manage your face, your voice, your responses. We still may be managing those things today. You smile at things that hurt. You try to act calm in situations where you really don't feel calmness is appropriate at this point. You let things go publicly while carrying them privately. The pleasantness you project to the people around you isn't always how you actually feel. It's a practiced surface experience. And underneath it, there are reactions you've been suppressing for so long, you've stopped noticing that they're even there. If you're ready to finally break free and start living with clarity, peace, and a grounded connection to your true self, then join the Road to Self program. Many who have joined say it was the missing piece in their healing journey, the step that finally helped them get their family out of them and stand strong as their true self. If you're not sure the Road to Self program is for you right now, then start with my free 84-minute self-differentiation training. Over 50,000 people have joined the free training as their first step. Click the links in the description to get started. Please don't forget to subscribe. Also comment on this video. I read the comments. And hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and be wise.
Hi, everybody. This is kind of an unscheduled live, which to you, and also share some other things with you. Let me see if we can get the chat up. And you know that if you're probably already tuning in. Hopefully there'll be some people joining us here soon. I wanted to share some things regarding, excuse me, setting good boundaries today. And I just thought I would share some thoughts that would be helpful to you. Hi, Beth from Michigan. Being a Hoosier boy, I understand where Michigan's at. When we talk about boundaries, particularly setting good boundaries for adult children of dysfunctional families, that's where it becomes more difficult. If you've grown up in a healthy family or a healthier family, I think every family has some dysfunction in it for sure, because anytime you have more than one person, you probably got some dysfunction going on. And thank you from Turkey. I appreciate your following very much. In setting boundaries from an adult child of dysfunctional family's perspective, the boundaries are going to feel differently than if you say grew up in a healthy family. It's going to feel very different. And I just thought it would be helpful to talk about that just a little bit so that we can be prepared when we set boundaries. We can set good boundaries. And we understand what's happening when we're doing that. And that has helped me to set boundaries better, because I did not have any boundaries. I was pretty much codependent, uber codependent guy for many years. And so I understand the difficulties in feeling guilt and shame and anxiety and timidness about my own self, not knowing my own self. Oh, did I see someone from Australia? Wow, in New Mexico. And thank you for joining very much. You're going to be seeing me more this week, so I hope you'll kind of watch. I don't know if this is a perfect time for everyone, but it it seemed to work out pretty well for a lot of people. The setting boundaries is a skill. It is a skill that we can learn to do, and it is a skill that does not. We would kind of see setting boundaries as someone who does that down on stage, but I'm up in the audience. In other words, I can't do what they do. I can just be up here watching people do it, but I really can't do it. And either I'm too afraid, I'm too worried about the consequences. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want someone to think I don't love them. All of those things that cross our mind and our emotions when we're trying to set boundaries. And I wanted to kind of reorient boundaries a little bit today in talking with you and what they're for and how we should think about them. Because I think a lot of people will think about them as a way to change the other person. I need to set a boundary so that they will change. The difficulty with that perspective is if certainly I would like them to change. Certainly I'd like to ask them to change. And you have every right to ask someone, please don't do that. You have every right to do that. But many times if somebody's already breaching or breaking your boundaries, then they already have a boundary breaking problem anyway. So it's not like, maybe there's some neurotic, healthy people out there that you can just tell them, hey, and they're sensitive enough and empathetic enough and go, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know that was a problem for you. But other people who have boundary issues and boundary problems, it's difficult to get them to understand. They just don't understand that and don't maybe even want to do what you're asking. And that they just figure you should put up with it. That's what you should be doing, is just put up with what's going on. And so when I think about boundaries and working on those for many years, because I think it does take some practice, and I do want to say, as always, calmness is everything. Please watch that video. If you haven't, that's a classic on the YouTube channel, because I talk about why calmness is so important, and calmness is so important for boundary setting. Now, if you say, well, Jerry, I just feel way too much anxiety. I understand, but there's a way to learn to do that to help reduce that anxiety so that it can come out of your adult and not out of your inner child who's afraid. And that's often where we try to set boundaries rather than from our adult. Because I need to quiet my inner child while I'm setting boundaries with someone. Another way of thinking about it, I need to quiet my emotions and keep focus on my thoughts. Not feelings, but thoughts. As the anxiety goes up, as tension goes up, as upsetness goes up, we want to do the opposite of what the system wants us to do. The system wants us to focus on our feelings, absorbing theirs, being reactive in ours, when actually what we want to do is focus on our thoughts and say, this is not the time for feelings. If I need to set a boundary, it's not the time for me to be talking about my feelings, their feelings. This is simply an adult discussion. I would like to ask you to stop doing that. For example, and again, that's a simple boundary, but they're more complex than that, as we all know. But I want to focus on my message, not the absorbing of the feelings in the interaction between them and me. That's not going to help with a boundary. So, one of the things is, and I'm going to mention this point, and it is difficulty setting boundaries often stems from unresolved attachments. Many people come to me and say, I can't set boundaries. I need to set boundaries. I don't know how to set boundaries. I don't know what my boundaries should be. And again, we can get help for all of those questions. We can get guidance and coaching and help for those things. You can learn more about how to do those things. I've got a number of videos on different topics about self-differentiation and boundaries. And one of the things I think we don't want to forget, though, and people often do, that difficulty setting boundaries often has to do with unresolved attachments. Now, what do I mean by that? In other words, we're still attached to old relationships in which boundaries could not be set. And so we have difficulty with the supervisor, the co-worker, the church member that we go to church with, the friend, the yoga partner, whatever. We have difficulty setting boundaries with them because what we have learned and how we're still attached regarding our family of origin, and particularly the dysfunctional family of origin. Because what did we learn about boundaries growing up in a dysfunctional family? There are none. I mean, that's pretty much what I learned. I mean, there was some privacy, but just emotionally and mentally and things like that, they're just very little. And for some families, those boundaries are totally ripped up to pieces in terms of boundaries. So there were little to no boundaries growing up. Boundaries were to be intruded upon, and you were not to have boundaries. I am to dictate who you are, how you feel, what you think, what you do. None of this, you want to be yourself kind of boundary. That is not acceptable, and it's not generally acceptable in narcissistic home, alcoholic home, often toxically divorced homes, all kinds of dysfunctional homes. We could not say this is what I would like and have it respected, because we often weren't respected. And why weren't we respected? Because my parents did not respect themselves. And why were they not respecting themselves? Because their parents were not respecting them as a valued child or an adult. Didn't mean there was no love. There was love in my family, but it just gets tied in with a whole bunch of other things, as many of you know. So those unresolved attachments are what's so important for setting boundaries. If I go, I don't think I can tell my coworker, I don't think I can tell my coworker that I'd really like her to not play her radio while we're working and she sits right next to me. She may get all upset. I got to work with her. I need to just make her happy. I should just comply and just be a people pleaser. And then I'm just irritated every time I go to work and hear her playing music I don't want to hear because she's not putting on headphones. She's playing it low, but it's still irritating. And I need to set a boundary about that, a work boundary. Oftentimes we will not want to do that because of what happened to us long ago. When we did try to tell someone no, or we felt voiceless or invisible, then we've got to go back and begin to heal that invisibility. And even practice what would we say now in those situations back then. How would we contemporize that past in which I learned not to have boundaries? Because I wish I would have, I really wish I could have learned boundary setting early on. But my dysfunctional programming taught me boundary setting was hurtful or offensive. That's what boundary setting is. It will only hurt other people, and they will be offended if you set a boundary, because you'll sound better than them. It's selfish. Just all kinds of messages that come with setting boundaries. And so we want to resolve those unresolved attachments from the past, where your boundaries, as Real Deal Prime says, where my boundaries were taken down. I want to begin to rebuild those boundaries back then. And I can journal about that. I can talk to a coach about that. And I can talk to our therapist, and I can talk to someone and go, hey, this is when I was told what I wanted didn't matter. And then I go back and go, but I do matter. And I did matter then. I was a child, no doubt. I couldn't just stand up to the big people, parents, older siblings, etc. But I can go back and begin to resist that negation of my boundaries and see it very clearly, and also see it as, okay, little Jerry, you're not getting your boundary met now. I see that. They're ignoring that. But now I'm with you, big Jerry. I'm the adult now. You're not just a little child in the midst of big people and giants. I'm with you now. And I'm not going to let somebody ignore you. Or how would I say, dish you regarding your boundaries. Now, some people may ignore you. Some people may even dish your boundaries. But then I got something for them. And what I mean is not I don't mean weaponizing anything. What I got is, then I need to adjust me with regard to you. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. So unresolved attachments can help you set, healing unresolved attachments can help you set better boundaries. If you're enmeshed with a mother or father or family, you're going to have a tough time setting boundaries. We're going to have to learn some separateness and some detachment and some self-differentiation. Once you start learning some of that self-differentiation and start moving that way, believe it or not, boundaries become more natural. You feel more calm about them. You feel more confident about them. The more enmeshed we are, then we're just floating around trying to survive with regard to boundaries. Because then anybody can, pull us by the nose anywhere they want us to go. And boundaries are in which I nail my foot to the floor. Now you can take me all around, but you're not taking me anywhere else. My foot is still nailed. And I think someone mentioned internal boundaries, that the more we detach in here, the more we will have internal boundaries, which will translate to external boundaries. And then I don't feel so bad, in saying, hey, and I mean no harm. This is my boundary, and I mean no harm. It's not for weaponizing. It's for me doing, and then I'm going to get to this, self-care. Secondly, from an adult child of dysfunctional family perspective, good boundaries often feel harsh, as I've been describing, rejecting. They're full of guilt for even both parties, shame for both parties, and detachment, healthy distance, feels unloving, selfish, uppity, you're better than me. It has all of those dynamics, but that's just the programming from the toxic family programming. That's not reality. It's what we think. It's how we experience boundaries, but we've been taught to experience it that way. If you are taught to feel guilty if you set a boundary with me, I can do a lot to control you. Then I'm in control. And so I need you to feel guilty, and I need you to feel that system's guilt, because that's not true guilt. If I set a boundary and say, please don't step on my foot, and I feel guilty, is that real guilt? Is that genuine guilt? Is that true guilt? No, no. Why should I feel guilty about saying, please don't step on my foot? And I don't want you to do that again, please. I should feel no guilt about that whatsoever. There shouldn't be any guilt about that. But I still feel guilty. Guess where that comes from? That's the old systems guilt that starts to creep up in my lower brain here and starts to creep up and starts to get me. But if I can recognize that wait a minute, this is false guilt. This is not true guilt. True guilt is when I've done something I shouldn't have done. Not done something as I reflect on it as an adult, and it's totally okay and appropriate. Yeah, if you really loved me, you would swallow this poison because I want you to. Exactly. And then if I say, no, I don't want to swallow that poison, well, what's wrong with you? You know, well, actually, I don't know. Maybe I'm healthy. Maybe there's nothing wrong with me. I don't want to do it. And I'm surprised you're even suggesting I do. So we have, again, good boundaries, once you start doing them, are going to feel awkward, rejecting, full of guilt. They might feel harsh. Or then we also have the issue of, and then I'm not really worthy to set a boundary. I'm just not that important. And you know all of that's an illusion too. That is an illusion. That's family systems think from a dysfunctional family that you're not worth being able to set a boundary. And we have come to believe that, and that if we, well, and that's a good belief to have in a dysfunctional family because it keeps the family dysfunctional. You don't want people just going out there on their own and becoming healthy. That's going to mess up the family system quite a bit, and they're going to be really uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. Let me continue here. Thirdly, try to use boundaries as self-love and self-preference and self-needs. In other words, use boundaries to adjust your emotional location with other people. And if you notice, I said emotional location, because that distance or space is very important. Like in my videos, I talk about the tennis court. And if somebody's over on my side of the tennis court, we're enmeshed. If I'm over on their side of the tennis court, we're enmeshed. And I want to be on my side, I want them on their side. Well, if they've jumped all the way over to my side, then I need to adjust my emotional distance with them. And I may want to go end round and go over on the other side of the tennis court. They can stay on this side, I'm going to stay on this side. But I'm not staying over here with them. My boundaries are going to tell me what do I need to do. What are the consequences if they don't? What am I going to do? Use boundaries to adjust your emotional location with them. More separateness, more space. Maybe we call it contact adjustment. Again, I don't want to set a boundary to make them change, because I can't change somebody else. You know who I have the power over to change? Me. I can change me. And I can give them the information that I want them to have in a boundary or suggestion or preference. You can ask someone, please don't do that. If someone jumps over to your side of the tennis net emotionally, and all asking you all up inside, hey, how much do you make for a living? And the how much do you make for a living? How much did you pay for that car? Just all intrusive kind of questions that we might get. If they're over on your side, you can ask them, oh, well, I think, that's not something I really want to talk about. I'm not sure why you're asking, but I just don't know that we need to discuss that today. I can do that, and if they are okay with that or they accept that, then we're fine. If they don't, then I got to jump over on the other side of the tennis net. Then I need more distance in this relationship because you're not respecting, even when I'm trying to put a regulator between us. Because boundaries can actually help us get closer. And I know that may sound crazy. When a couple comes to me and they're married and they are very, very distant with each other, do you know what that tells me? They're way too close. And so they're way too close emotionally. And that's why they have to maintain that distance. And they often don't recognize that. I wouldn't have either. But it is a way to get out of that dynamic. So again, we're not trying to change them, we're trying to change us. They're for us to regulate ourselves. And if someone's willing to accept my boundary, fine. If they're not, then I need to make some adjustments, whether that be with a narcissist or whatever. I can make that attempt. If they have no interest in respecting me, I need some emotional distance, and I might even need some physical distance. Physical distance does not equate. Physical distance does not equate to emotional distance. Some people can be enmeshed with their family, go move 2,000 miles away, they're still enmeshed with their family. It's just they're not as close, or they don't talk as often, or don't see each other. But I think it's really something that you want to consider, that we could. I always try to go with emotional distance first to work on that, then physical distance. Unless there's abuse, unless there's physicality, then okay, all bets are off. I'm not saying that. We don't stay there for abuse. But if they're just good neurotic folks who got issues, then what we want to do is to try to set emotional boundaries first and get some distance in here. Then if we need physical distance, then we go with the physical distance. But I'm going to take whatever distance I got to take if you are not willing to accept my boundaries. Then I'll go to the nth to do whatever distance I got to do. Not because I want to, but because you are requiring me to. And I think that's what so many people don't realize. And yeah, stealing your car would not necessarily be a good thing. And certainly I'd be going, no, if you're going to be into stealing my car, then I need more distance, quite a bit more distance, because you're acting sociopathically or whatever you're doing. And the, where was it? Oh, I'm prepared to do whatever distance I need to do to honor my boundaries. And guess who I'm standing up for? Me. Standing up for me. And that's what I've missed for so long. We didn't stand up for us, and weren't taught to stand up for us. In fact, we were taught not to stand up for us. I also, number 4, I wanted to talk about briefly, be emotionally and mentally prepared for worst case. And by the way, I've got a online program that's going to be starting here, I think May 7th. There is a pre-launch discount that you can get up until May 6th if you want to do the program. And I talk much more about all of these things and go into great detail and exercises. And I really encourage you to take a look at that on the website and check that out. I think you will find it. I wish I would have had these modules that I have for this online program, which is a self-paced learning program, 35, 40 years ago. If I'd had that somewhere that I could go listen to more of that, it would have been a life changer for me. I had to learn a little slower because I had to go a little different way because there wasn't as much out there then. And there certainly wasn't as much for lay people like you and I. I become a professional, but as a lay person, you know, I needed somebody who could explain it in lay terms that I could understand and use and benefit and grow. So, fourthly, be emotionally, mentally prepared for worst case. And again, I think that's what's important. If I'm going to set a boundary, think about the worst case situation. What's the worst that they could do? Whatever it is, prepare for that. Now, if it doesn't happen, then you're in a good position. If it does happen, then you're ready to take whatever steps you need to take at that point. But plan and prepare, and I always try to help people plan and prepare for their boundary setting. It shouldn't just be off the cuff, because many times off the cuff means, oh, they're just upset right now, I don't have to pay attention to what they're saying, because often we're setting boundaries via reactivity. Boundaries via reactivity often doesn't work. Boundaries via adult us, calm us, direct us, that's much more powerful. And I can remember even making statements to a family member where I would say, hey, I just want to tell you, I do not want you to ever say that again to me. That's the adult Jerry talking. I'm not overreactive. I'm not hating the person. I'm just saying I do not want you to ever say that to me again. And in my mind, I'm going, if they do, I have my plan. I've got the plan. Because that crossed the boundary. And I need to become serious. Not so overly serious that I can't, that I'm frozen, but I need to become serious about this. Now, they may take it as not serious. Oh, Jerry, you're just so oversensitive. Oh, this is no big deal. I stay serious and go, I understand that's how you feel. I just want you to never say that to me again. And be quiet and stop and let that hang out there. And then if they choose to ignore that, well, then I need more internal and external distancing from them because of their own choosing, not because of mine, because of their own choosing. I'm not trying to end the relationship or make it worse, but I won't put up with any relationship just for a relationship. That's kind of suicidal. And I think, and I've said so many times, even with families and friends, and, I can live without my family. I don't want to, but I can live without my family. But I cannot live without self-love. That's much more, and self-compassion and self-care. I can't live without that. And I think that's an important thing to remember. Well, there have been a number of comments that I've seen gone by here. I would be open to taking just a couple questions today if you have some. Yes, and then I just had a comment about religion and religion in the families. Yeah, you sprinkle in unhealthy religion, and then you've got a problem. And a lot of families, there will be some unhealthy religious dynamics in there that are not healthy spirituality, not healthy views of God. And I'm not judging anybody's beliefs, but I do have a standard, and the standard is healthy spirituality. And I know that some people don't even believe it needs to be healthy. It just needs to be whatever they believe the Bible is, or the Quran, or the. And I just have come. I think healthy spirituality, healthy religion is so very important. And I've taught religion and psychology for years, and I don't know everything. Certainly not. I wish I did. If you're, I think I read that question. Uh, your mother was, I just missed it. And I wish I could, why can I not have my, there it is. There, I got it. Now I can actually, your comments kept disappearing for me. I'm sorry. Now, I got it. Now, how come they disappeared again? Okay. Well, I think Beth, I think it's a good question. What if, your mother, has CPTSD from childhood abuse and bad marriage to a pastor? Should I be more forgiving and understanding? Well, I'm always for more forgiveness and understanding. I think I can have forgiveness and understanding for a malignant narcissist. Now, that doesn't mean that I want to live with them, and that doesn't mean I want to have lots of interaction with them. Because I think even those who have personality disorders suffer as well. And I do have some compassion for them. But it's like having compassion for a sociopath is problematic. I still have some compassion for a sociopath. They can't form healthy relationships. They don't care about anybody or anything. I think that's very sad. I have compassion for them. But that doesn't mean I'm going to leave my wallet out. And so I think it's okay to have that. And then also I like to challenge those who've grown up, who have grown up with abuse or been in a bad marriage and had struggles, that I can, and see, I don't neutrality, as a comment just made, I don't think having neutrality means you have no compassion. I think compassion and neutrality can go together. That's what I believe, and I've experienced that. And you can have compassion and neutrality. My mother could be a big victim, and poor her, and this and that. And I have compassion for her. I knew how she grew up. I knew what she went through. I knew what's gone on. And I know, how she set up her own life and things like that. And I have compassion, etc., for her. But, what she is willing to do, what is she willing to do for herself? And how does her dysfunction interfere with respecting me and valuing me as a person? And I have a high standard for that. I have some standard, but not, if somebody doesn't like me, okay, then they don't like me. Fine, that's cool. But basic respect is what's very important. And I think that's where that neutrality comes from. I can respect people on a basic level, and that I still have some connectedness with them, and I have respect for them, or can treat them respectfully. I may not respect their behavior, but like with the mother in that situation, she's been through a lot. You can have compassion as long as it doesn't become contagious dysfunction for you. I don't pick up any fleas from people who have been through lots of bad things, who have no interest in changing. Who are not interested in changing themselves. and trying to get better, or trying to listen, or trying to heal, or trying to recover, trying to do the best they can. And I value something with people trying to do the best they can. And I know some people's best can be pretty minimum. And how much compassion your values are, what your beliefs are, that all comes into how connected you want to be. But the obligation is not there. And so I'm always for love and compassion, and then let's see how things go. And is there room enough in this relationship for me to exist? Like with the mother, and your mother could be anybody out there. Lots of fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, friends. If they've been through a hard time, gone through lots of difficulties, I have compassion for that. But does our relationship have room for me? And unfortunately, the more traumatized you are, the more dysfunctional you've been dysfunctionally programmed, oftentimes does not leave room for other people in the relationship. It's all about them. It's all about them. Now, if it's not, then you have some room to maneuver if you want to continue a relationship with a family member because again, most every relationship has some good parts and bad parts. I haven't found too many relationships that only have one. I'm sure there's some few that have one side, but most have some good parts and bad parts. I just don't want the bad parts interfering with my sense of wellness, wholeness, my sense of self, and my own value. It can't challenge those. I've worked too hard, and I am too valuable for that. I'm not too good for that. I'm too valuable for that. And what I mean by that is I'm not better than anybody else. I am just knowing that I am important for me. That's what I'm important to me and for me. That's what I mean. Any other questions someone might have? Let's see if I can. Ooh, that's a pretty good question. I might. Yeah, I'm glad you sent that again. I can't stop feeling jealous of my golden child sister. I'm the scapegoat. My parents just think of me as subordinate, and I can never seem to change my status. Great question. And I have some videos on. Scapegoating and being a scapegoat, because I think there's a very powerful family role, and understanding why we're in that role is very important. And then also understanding that I first have to get the role out of me rather than waiting on them to change so that I will feel less like a scapegoat. If that makes any sense. The role's got to come out of me. They need that role. They need you in that role. So they're not going to be very amenable to, oh, well, you're right. We have been kind of treating you as a scapegoat. I think we'll all change. Shall we all vote and change and not have her be a scapegoat? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to keep doing the scapegoat because it fits the family dynamics of unresolved anger, unresolved attachment issues, frustrations, guilt, shame, addictions, all kinds of things. All that's wrapped up in there in the dysfunctional family, and then it has to go somewhere, and it will go to roles. The lost child suffers because of all of that anger and stuff going in there. The scapegoat suffers because we got to have a place to put all this crap emotionally, and it's not conscious, it's unconscious. It may seem conscious to you to see them do this, but it's generally unconscious. They actually think they're doing the right thing. I mean, and you're kind of going, what? because they are programmed too. They have their own programming. So I got to deal with my programming. How do I get scapegoat out of me rather than how can I get them to stop scapegoating me? That can reverse the polarity of what's going on in terms of the emotional circuitry that's going on between the two. The more I try to resist it with them, the more they will probably stick me in that corner of being the scapegoat. The more I let go of it, and the more I deal with that on my own and deal with my sense of being a scapegoat and how I feel about it, how I feel about me, how I choose to live. Let's see here. Why the golden child doesn't necessarily have a better situation than the scapegoat role can shift sometimes, but it's the same circus of insanity. Absolutely. And if you know, roles can change in families. I've been the scapegoat and the golden child, and I've been the lost child. And I've lived long enough that I've had lots of opportunities to audition for different parts in the family. That was kind of an unconscious audition, I'll have to say that. But it is the same circus. And so what we want to do is not shift roles, but to get all the way out of the box. Not just shift places within the box. We want to get all the way out of the box. So that scapegoat, lost child, those are not me. They are not me. They're absolutely not me. You can behave the way you want to behave, family. Hey, I can't stop you from behaving that way, but it's all rather silly and ridiculous. And if you're going to keep me as a scapegoat, and you're not going to invite me to Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners, and then I need to work on getting other plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas, because I don't have to have those gatherings to be happy and healthy. I don't have to. And would it be nice? Of course it would be nice. But a lot of me having a brand new sports car would be nice. But can I be happy without one? Yes, I can. And I think so. Those different roles. It's interesting because when I talk about getting the family out of you, that's again a part of the program that is coming up May 7th, that has 6 large modules, exercises, things that go along with that. There's a pre-launch discount for anyone who signs up before May 6th or before, I believe. And I really think it would be worthwhile to check that out. It even has a money-back guarantee. If you're not changed by this module, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not a perfect teacher. I'm not the ideal vessel for all of this information. I'm really not. I wish I were. Other people might do it much better than I do. But I really do believe you will not be the same after this program. And I've had people say that before. This is, hey, I've been in therapy for 20 years and nobody ever said anything like this. Because I like this perspective and I think it's the most helpful. Because that's why I chose it for myself. This is my own recovery program, my own recovery theory that have come from others. I mean, I've certainly borrowed from others. There's no doubt now. I give credit to them. But I really think it's the best way to look at your relationships and how you change. And make real change. Not just shift around the circus. Not just go from here and then you fall back into the rut. But I mean real change where you don't go back into the same rut. That's what I consider real change. Well, I think I need to call it a day. Please check out that online program. There's also a new mini training that I have available. It's totally free. It is totally free, and the you can get 84 minutes of training just for signing up to watch it. So please feel free to do that. And I think that's another thing I want to give away here. And I want to thank you all for watching. I'm going to be coming back on live hopefully tomorrow and maybe even for the next few days. Thank you so much for your questions. You have a great day and be wise.
Hey, hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach. And I've been a social worker, a marriage and family therapist, a pastoral counselor, a priest, and I've been helping people for over 40 years to gain a sense of self-differentiation, to help them in their relationships, in their careers, in their businesses. And today's video is entitled Stop Thinking with Your Feelings. I hope you'll join this YouTube channel, and I also hope you will subscribe. There are 3 workshops that are available on my website, which is listed down in the description area of this video. And I'd like to talk about, again, stop thinking with your feelings. I have clients who are perplexed about why their families cannot accept or understand them, especially if they're trying to present their own views or values or opinions, or even about topics they don't really have a strong position on. But the even getting a family to understand you either don't want to talk about it, or it's not an issue that you have a strong opinion about, and how difficult it is to get others to again accept and understand you. Let's take John's family. John's family is, say, all Methodists. And I grew up in the Methodist church, but I've also been involved in many other churches as well throughout my life. But John grew up in a Methodist family, and he chooses to join the Catholic Church, whether because he wants to marry someone who's a Catholic, or he's been converted to become a Catholic. And he asked me, why does my family have the inability to hear me or accept me or logically understand me about my choice of church or spirituality? And we are very frustrated with why others cannot accept our differences. Or some of you, no matter what your politics are, had some discussions about whether Trump should be president or Biden should be president. And again, when we talk about religion and politics, many times, or money, or very sensitive issues, you find that it's very difficult to have that logical, rational discussion about it in a calm way, that others that you encounter are having such difficulty not hearing you, understanding you, or accepting where you're at. And it can seem impossible to get through, to be heard, to be understood, to have my view be accepted. Another example would be, let's say Janet is married to an adult child of an alcoholic, who is Derek, but Derek denies that it has any impact on him whatsoever. Janet sees many ways the traits of ACOA affects their marriage and their kids, their parenting, reactivity, the relationship.
And even a logical, rational, or calm discussion about the traits of ACOA is met with resistance or denial or illogical mental formulations, such as, well, I know my mother and father were both alcoholic, but they didn't have any effect on me and don't have any effect on me now as an adult, which is kind of an illogical mental formulation. And Derek truly acts like he believes that. And even when you just bring up the facts don't matter. And why do we meet with this resistance from others? And my theory is this: many people experience low levels of self-differentiation and experience a fusion between their feeling process and their thinking process or mental process. And if you have low self-differentiation, then you have more of a fusion between thoughts and feelings. And we don't separate those very much. It's fused. And this fusion is what I call feel think. There are other words for it. I think some people have used what do they call, affect thinking, some motivational beliefs. There's some other words out there to describe the feel think. Feel think seems to be the easiest for me. When our feelings or our emotional system drives our thoughts and feelings, and our feelings, when our emotional system drives our thoughts and feelings are in the driver's seat, then we are feel thinking. And I think for many people, feelings are in the driver's seat, even when it comes to their beliefs and thoughts. Again, if you are someone who believes something very strongly, that Methodists are the only true Christians in the world, and then somebody wants to join the Catholic Church, then you don't understand that at all. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever to you. Oftentimes, what's underneath it is feel thinking, not think thinking. Recognizing feel think in ourselves and others is vital for maturity and self-differentiation. Also, why is it that someone can be against a family member vigorously and a week later they're best friends? Then the next week they're scapegoated again. I suspect feel thinking is at work in the family. There's a difference between your feelings informing and enlightening your thinking versus feel think, which is feelings running your thinking and driving what you believe. And again, try to talk to someone who doesn't believe we landed on the moon and see how well you do in trying to convince them that maybe we did. And it is my opinion that we did. I remember in my youth seeing that and experiencing that. But again, if someone has a conspiratorial feel think process going on, then they are going to deny anything that they see or any thoughts that challenge that thinking, which is propelled by feelings. And often this process is unconscious. I think what's helpful is to try to work on making it conscious and being aware that we can be aware of that and we can make that conscious. How do we identify if we're feel thinking? What would you want? What questions would you ask yourself? Well, ask yourself, how much anxiety are you experiencing right now? How calm are you? My hunch is if I'm talking to someone who doesn't believe we landed on the moon, and I'm going, well, I think we probably did. That's my feeling. I would guess their anxiety is starting to go up. Their heartbeat may be going faster, their breathing may be going faster, and they are not calm about this issue. Or talk to someone about politics and about the opposing candidate. Heart rate goes up, breathing starts to go up, anxiety starts to go up. And that fuels that thought process. Um, we can ask ourselves, are we feeling reactive right now? Because if we're feeling reactive, we're probably in the process of feel thinking. And that's where we're having these feelings. The emotional system is kind of overloading the thinking process, and it will go along with the feelings, no matter how logical or illogical it is. Just like in Derek's situation with his wife, and he's an ACOA. Even though there's a part of him that knows what his wife is saying is true, but his feelings or denial and his feeling process starts to overrun his thought process. And that's when he starts saying, no, 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 I don't think ACOA issues have anything to do with our marriage or anything else in our lives. I know in working with alcoholics and addicts for many years, treating alcoholics, addicts, heroin addicts. I remember in a treatment facility I was in, I was the family counselor. We had very hardcore addicts that came from Michigan and the Detroit area. And then we had more local alcoholics and addicts in our area. And I'm not saying Detroit has the worst, drug problem. I'm just saying that heroin was a big problem at that time. And they would send them down to our treatment center because they thought we did some of the best work with alcoholics and addicts. Try to convince someone who's an alcoholic that, his drinking may be a problem. And what are you going to get? Lots of denial, lots of feel think. Now it's going to come out as thoughts, but it's going to be feel think. I remember talking to an executive who had an alcohol problem, and he had a alcohol abuse disorder, and it was probably close to moderate to severe. And I would ask him questions. He had a DUI in which he had ran into some parked cars going home after drinking at the bar, and he denied that hitting the parked cars had anything to do with his drinking. And he was talking like a reasonable person. I mean, he wasn't, my hunch is, though, there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of things going on within him. And he just could not see the connection between him hitting the parked cars and his drinking. And of course, the police arrested him with a DUI, and he was clearly, well over the limit. But he could not put those together because his feelings were running his thought process. So ask yourself if you're feeling reactive. Look and observe if you're being reactive. If you don't feel reactive, are you being reactive? In other words, I notice that when someone brings up an issue, and they're telling me that, hey, Jerry, you don't believe that we actually landed on the moon, do you? And then I might start to get more anxious, or my heart beats faster, or I breathe a little faster. And, and I want to convince them that that's not true. And then I go, hold on, I'm being reactive, and I may be feeling reactive, but I'm also being reactive because I want to convince them that that's not true. And if I'm really thoughtful and not feel thinking, I'm able to give different responses. For example, if somebody says, I don't, Jerry, we didn't land on the moon. And I would say, well, whether we did or not, there's a lot of conflicting evidence. And, I hope, as we both grow, we may learn the truth of that. So look and see if you're feeling reactive. Look and see if you're being reactive. Is your heart beating faster? Do you have the feeling of fight or flight? How enmeshed are you with the beliefs and thoughts right now? Do they mean everything? Like in my case, it just, this person is crazy. Why did they think we didn't land on the moon? That's ridiculous. This is just absolutely insane. I'm way too connected to the need to convince them that we landed on the moon. I don't need to convince them of that. It's not required. It's not a belief I'm not going to die on that hill of whether we landed on the moon or not. It's not going to make a difference right now. So how enmeshed am I with my beliefs? If somebody says to me, well, Jerry, I just think self-differentiation is ridiculous. Well, that's something that's important to me, but I'm not overfused with it where I could say, well, then if I were you, I would stay far away from it. Then if you notice, I'm not in an argumentative mode or a defensive mode at that point. And again, is the threat to your beliefs a threat to you personally? Because if somebody says, well, hey, we never landed on the moon. Well, okay. I don't have a personal stake of us landing on the moon. I happen to believe we did, but if you don't believe we did, good luck with that belief. Good luck with my belief. Ask, how do others affect my feelings when I'm around them? Because if we already start to feel racing heart, fast breathing, anxiety, if we're already in that mode, then that's probably going to tell us we're probably more likely to do some feel thinking, and we want to stay calm. How much am I able to think clearly and not be overwhelmed by feelings when I talk to other people? How much can I be my real self around other people? The less self, the more likely we will revert to feel thinking. Like having a self meaning, well, my self believes that we landed on the moon. And that doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. It doesn't make any difference. That's my belief. That's who I am. And that's okay. If you don't believe that, that's fine, but I do. And I don't need to injure our relationship or become reactive because of it. How much do we value our own values? How much do I value my beliefs? How much do I value my subjectivity? And subjectivity is what you think is going on. And, I want to value my beliefs, but that doesn't mean I have to argue them or defend them. I listen to you based on how calm and thoughtful you are. Many of us listen to people in our lives who are highly charged, very anxious, intense, and illogical or ridiculous in their thoughts. And we struggle to figure this out. Because if I can already tell someone's in a feel-think mode, why do I think logic is going to pull them out of it? Because it's not. Typically, logic does not pull them out of it. They have to have a conversion experience for them to believe something different. They may need to hit bottom, like in the case of the executive who's an alcoholic. He may need to hit bottom because me just telling him, hey, Bob, you've got a really severe problem here. And I'm sorry you don't see that. But your job is going to fire you, and you don't see any connection between your drinking and hitting those parked cars going home. And so I know he's feel thinking, and there's nothing wrong with me continuing to say without being defensive, Bob, I believe you're hurting, and I believe you have a problem. I'm not shaming you. But I believe you have a problem, and I'm going to continue to believe that. When we have these symptoms, our thoughts and logic are guided by our emotional system, and our thinking system is sitting in the passenger seat. When we have these symptoms of greater anxiety, fast heart rate, breathing faster, feeling anxious, or feeling intense. Maybe that's another way. People will kind of get all exercised or intense about something. And I know passionate, they become passionate about it. Well, you can be passionate about something without feel thinking, but we have to be really mature and careful when we're passionate, that it truly is a thinking process, not a feel thinking process. again, we are much more likely to feel when our anxiety is lower. We are much more likely to think when our anxiety is higher. Use the feel think model to hear other people. They are expressing thoughts fueled, justified, and backed up by their feelings, often not facts. In other words, again, the process, we see what we want to see. And when we see what we want to see, it's often feel thinking that we're seeing that way. Feel think illogical, irrational expressions by other people are not about something, feel think illogical, irrational expressions by other people are about something they need and not about me. They need to have that belief. And we tend to think, well, I've got to convince them out of it. No, it's not something you need, it's something they need. They're using that for defense, protectiveness, and it's something they need to hold on to. Now, again, you have a right to say, well, Bob, I still think you have a problem. Or, John, I just want to say, I have a little different thought about the moon. I do think we landed there. But hey, what's for lunch? Let me give you an example. And here's one way to think about, and I think using think feel rather than feel think. When you are, if somebody says to me, well, you're just oversensitive and a troublemaker, I turn it into, I think you need me to be oversensitive and a troublemaker for you to feel at ease. That's how I hear that statement. Another statement, why can't you just get along with everybody in the family? I think, why do you need me to not get along with everybody in the family? Because they're expressing their need about you, not the truth about you, but their need about you, which is often a feel think process. I think you're a fool for marrying her. She's not of our faith, and we don't, and we won't be able to relate as families. I think, why does this system or person need me to be the fool and marry the wrong person? Because of their fears, their concerns, their anxiety, and many times shame. If we're all a Methodist family and my son marries a Catholic and I'm very connected to my Methodist personhood, and that is a part of who I am, but in a kind of an immature way, then now I'm going to explain to my other Methodist friends why my son married a Catholic. And so I feel some shame about that. So when I talk to my son, I'm talking to him with those feelings of fear of shame, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. And so I'm going, why would you want to marry somebody? Blah, 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 blah. You know that. Blah, 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 blah. And then we do all of that. Some tips you might be aware of. Be aware of your own feeling storms. When a storm is going on emotionally, you're probably feel thinking. Be aware of defensiveness. If you're being way too defensive, you're probably feel thinking. Be aware of argumentativeness within yourself. If you feel like I need to argue with them and get this right, these will trigger your feelings to jump into the driver's seat and not stay in the passenger seat. If I'm someone who's marrying outside of my family's faith, and my family comes to me, and I'm just using that as an example, there could be any number of, taking a job they don't like, buying a car in my situation, buying a car that my brother doesn't like. It's when they say, well, how can you buy a foreign made car? Well, I write the check or I go to the bank and get the loan. I don't have to defend why I'm choosing to buy a foreign made car, an American made car, or a German made car, or whatever car I want to buy. If I'm paying for it, I guess I'll buy the car I want to buy. And I will logically say, because that is my preference, because that is what I like, and that's what I'd like to buy. But I don't understand why you're taking that stand. Well, I'm really not taking a stand. I'm buying a car that I would like. And then, interestingly enough, many years later, my brother buys foreign made cars and I'm buying American cars. Whereas before it caused arguments back then that I was buying a foreign car. And isn't it funny how it flips? Because a feel think is how it can flip. Take thinking breaks when interacting with others or spouses or friends or family members, people in authority. Go calm down. Reset feelings to the passenger seat and let the thinking remain in the driver's seat. It's not easy, but it's a practice that you can do. And I coach people to do that and to learn how to do that. And they find it very helpful. And it's very helpful for their recovery and in their goals as well, because that happens on a business level, on an executive level, on a marital level, on a leadership level. It happens on all levels. And if we can master that, we can really be effective as people and effective as leaders and effective in our marriages and relationships. You might want to read the book by Mark Manson. I hate the title, but Everything is Effed, a book about hope. And it's actually a very good book. I just wish he might have used another title for that. But I like his Newton's Law of Emotions. And I think they're great. And I think they really do. And he does talk about the passenger seat and driver's seat for our feeling and thinking process. I also have reading lists on self-differentiation. If you're interested in those, send me an email. You can see my contact information below. I do want to say, let me be clear, there's an important place for feelings. I'm not denigrating feelings. I'm saying they shouldn't be in the driver's seat. We can gain information from our feelings. It's very important to learn to identify and express feelings. Our feelings can tell us things about us and the relationship. This video is about the importance of the thinking system in relationships and how it can get hijacked and driven by our feeling system, which actually began long ago when we were growing up. I want to mention I have a workshop coming up on April 10th, 2021, Saturday from 1 to 5. It's hosted on Zoom, and it's entitled Overcoming Guilt and Shame Through Family of Origin Work. I hope you'll register now for the early bird fee, that it will go up as the workshop gets closer. There are 3 workshops available on my website that make a great mini masterclass. Check out all 3. They're for sale or rent on my website. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise. Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a relationship expert, and I've been helping clients for 36 years using Murray Bowen Family Systems approach to helping them with life problems, career problems, relationship problems. And this video is entitled, How Do I Deal with My Family's Allergy to Reality? Or Shared Secrets and Differences. Certainly those are very difficult for us to deal with, because when there are shared secrets or things we cannot talk about or perspectives that we cannot share, the reality we have that we can't talk about in our family, because the family sees it a particular way or a family member sees it in a particular way, and it would be way too much of a challenge for us to own our own reality about that. And we tend to back off, be afraid, we tend to be reactive, we don't like the anxiety it produces, they don't like the anxiety it produces, other family members. It causes frustration and difficulty within the family. But how do we self-differentiate or become authentic or mature if we see things differently than family members? How do we deal with that contrast? And is there a healthy way to deal with it? Is there, as I would consider, at least a successful way to deal with it? Or I can say the bottom line, is there a mature way to deal with it? Certainly there's lots of immature ways to deal with it. And I've talked with lots of couples and individuals who have taken the immature approaches, including myself, on a number of occasions throughout my life. So I know what many of those are from a first-hand experience. Coming from a very codependent background for me, not really liking me, not really thinking much of me, low self-esteem, shame issues, lack of self-differentiation, self-knowledge, lack of authenticity. Let me try to be what everybody wants me to be. Having those kind of difficulties, it makes it difficult for me to own my own reality with family members and also with wider community, social community. I have done better over the last few decades, which has really helped tremendously. And also I've found most of the catastrophes that I thought it would cause by me owning my own reality never happened, or if they happened, were only temporary. And that eventually the system would come around to accept me as to who I am. This video also, I'm kind of talking about how to self-differentiate or differentiate away from the shared secrets in your family of origin. Meaning, again, we have this frame or this way of looking at it in our family. And if you disagree with that, you need to keep your mouth shut. You must not say anything about it. And it won't be accepted. There could be even negative consequences as a result of it. There was a client who had done some work with me and helping me with videos. And when I made a transition, she was kind enough to list all my videos for me and save them on YouTube because she thought they were valuable and wanted other people to watch them. And so I asked her, I said, well, how can I tell you thank you? Can I do a video for you? She gave me a topic, and this is the topic, and I wanted to share that with her. And I said I'd do a video on about any topic you'd ask, as long as I knew something about the topic. Fortunately, I knew something about the topic. In asking me to do this, we take a look at what do you do when you no longer have alliances to keep secrets. In other words, you don't want to keep that alliance with the family, to keep certain secrets or keep a certain frame about the way things were. Everybody knew that Uncle so-and-so molested the sister. Everybody knows that, but we all act like and have the frame or the perspective that it never happened. And we don't talk about it, and that it's resolved, or it just never happened in the first place. But yet everybody knows it did, the whole family, but we have a shared secret. And we all share this silence and all share this perspective that, oh, I think the sister was just histrionic at that time and was just making it up. Uncle Fred never really did do that. When you know from the sister that it happened, you know that it may have even happened to you, but you haven't shared that part of it. So you know Fred's certainly one who is inappropriate and what he did was wrong. How do we navigate becoming the skirt lifter? Because we're lifting the skirt or secret revealer in our family of origin. And when you're a skirt lifter for the family, that can be a pretty tough place to be in. And I think there are ways to prepare for that. There are ways to practice for that. There are ways to survive that. If you're going to be a skirt lifter, secret revealer, or to own your own reality up against your family's reality. As you can well imagine, the concept of shared secret is an oxymoron. It's a contradictory in terms. How can you have a secret that's shared? But actually, most secrets in the family are known by everyone. It's just cannot be discussed, talked. It's an undiscussable. And in business can be the same way. Businesses and executives and church organizations, companies have shared secrets that everybody knows, but we can't talk about it. They are undiscussable. And that's what keeps businesses from being profitable, from being healthy, churches from being profitable, healthy, effective, and then certainly families who are dysfunctional as a result of it. I find clients become more self-aware and more self-differentiated and more mature when they start to become more mature, start to become more self-aware. Then they start to ask, when and how do I share my perspective, or not continue to lie about the secret or make the undiscussable discussable with the family and its narrative and what they think's going on, and how do I share what is undiscussable with my family? How do I share what I believe to be true without ripping the skirt all the way off the person rather than just lifting it up a bit? And let me share with you some of the secrets and some of the different perspectives that family members can have. These are just a dozen of them or so, but there are dozens and dozens and hundreds of secrets and hundreds of perspectives that families have that may not agree with us and how they see it, and events that occurred that they have a different take on it, or even a wrong take, dysfunctional take on it. So here's some of those issues of family denial. Mom's narcissism, dad's alcoholism, brother's abuse, family rage, and these are the undiscussables. We can't talk about any of these. Family's disrespect for boundaries, mom standing by dad when he was physically abusive, the way my parents treat my spouse might be another thing we can't talk about, and I'll have an example of that in just a moment. The reality that my sister was mean to my kids and my wife, my brother's crazy reality about him and how I and my spouse hate him and I've never loved him, mother never calling, never reaching out, never asking about my life, and favors other siblings with money, gifts, time, inheritance, but feels and believes and tells everyone that she deeply loves me and we're loved equally like all the rest of the kids. And I don't know how many times I've worked with couples and with individuals whose parents have, say, 3 kids. 2 of the kids get the inheritance, 1 kid doesn't, because they go, well, they're struggling and they're not as successful as you are, so we're going to leave all the money to them and not to you. And they don't realize how that's a continuation of their bad parenting, their dysfunctional parenting. Now, it's their money. They can do whatever they want with it. That's clearly, whenever anybody says, hey, they can be as dysfunctional with their money as they want to. And we have to come to accept that. But it doesn't mean we think it's mature and right or just, because it just continues their enabling of the under-functioning siblings, and then you are left out, and they say, but we all love you equally. Well, it just doesn't relate across the board. It would be another thing if parents would say, well, we're going to give it all to you equally, and then the parents come to you and say, hey, your brother and sister are really, really struggling. We know you're doing well. How do you feel about us maybe working out your third in some way? That's at least a fair, reasonable way to kind of maturely come at this. But it's their money. I understand. They can do whatever they want. We have to accept that. But nobody can talk about how, the other siblings will say, well, I'm just so glad we all got equal parts, in the inheritance. When you know good and well you didn't. But you can't say you didn't, because that's a family secret and that's not supposed to be talked about. Dads, I often find clients have, before they have come to see me, struggled with the guilt and shame of seeing things differently than their family of origin, or keeping secrets that they hate keeping. They have made failed attempts to break the secret bonding with the family. They have also dropped the bomb on families at inopportune times, meaning they've gotten so reactive or so upset they'll just blurt out a secret or some negative thing to everyone because they're just so frustrated. They have become the outcast and scapegoats of the family because of threatening the family with revealing or trying to reveal secrets. And of course, that can be very costly for them and has been over the years. I don't think they were able to have at their access and have the awareness of systems and how they work, so that they can surgically and be able to more navigate this map of family of origin dynamics, so they might be able to grow themselves up within the family without blowing it all the way up. It can be very difficult, and families can be very frustrating and very difficult to work with. They've also tried to be authentic with their family while not understanding how the family functions. They do not anticipate others' reactions. They did not know where they are in processing the secret themselves. Because if we still have the secret and we have all kinds of reactive feelings about it, that's probably not the best way to share the secret. When I'm in the middle of processing my own feelings about it, I can be conflicted, I can be angry, I can be hurt, I can have all those things. That's not the way to reveal family secrets or your own perspective if you're trying to help change yourself within the family. Because oftentimes if you have those conflicted feelings, you will make attempts to change the family, and they'll feel it and sense it within the emotional field, or within the vibes, as you say. They will feel it and know that, and then cannot accept your view of reality, and they'll have to reject you too. And also, if I'm trying to share my own perspective or my own view of the secret, or the secret itself, because I don't want to just carry it and deny it all my life, if I haven't resolved those feelings about it, I'm going to be very reactive. And that will also create reactivity within the family as well. The good thing about family systems is that if you can be calm, others can tend to be and will tend to be calmer. If you are reactive, others will tend to be reactive and more reacting in a highly charged way. So how you come at it is very important. Not from a codependent standpoint, but from an authentic, mature, self-differentiated standpoint. Well, what do I do about breaking the shared secret bond we have with our family? What do we do to share our authentic experience and reality with our family? Resolve the secret for yourself first. Deal with your own triggers, shame, your own guilt, your own anger, your own hurt, your own frustration, your own resentments. Deal with those first before you start to share all that within the family, or try to get them to be accepting of your reality. First, you must be authentic and not reactive. That's the first step. Never share your perspective or awareness or speak openly about a secret with the intent of changing your family. They will pick up on this, as I have said. They're very finely tuned and finely tuned to that, just like a piano. They know when someone's sharing it to either shame or hurt them. We want to come as neutral as possible about these secrets and about my own perspective. Plan and anticipate the moves and resistance of your family. Don't just plan for, well, it's all going to go well, or I don't care how they react. Then we're not strategic enough. Going, well, I shouldn't worry about what they think. I'm just going to say whatever I want to think. Well, that's not very strategic. It's not. You don't understand the lay of the land, and so you're most likely to trip over things, to get reactive in ways you didn't anticipate, and then it becomes more of a problem. Be prepared for the fallout, and remember, fallout is often temporary. Fortify your inner self, such as watching. I have a video entitled "Building Up Your Ability to Go Without Love or Approval." And you can find that on Jerry Wise Relationship Systems channel on YouTube. Remember, talking about secrets or a different way of seeing things from the way your family of origin sees things will trigger shame and guilt in dysfunctional families. And it will trigger that within them and in you if you don't deal with that first. We know we may be triggering their shame or guilt, but we can also manage that, handle that, let them just feel whatever they're going to feel, but also know, you don't have to be threatened by me. You may feel shamed, but I'm not here to threaten you. I just don't want to keep this secret anymore. And so I want to share that. And I'm going to share what I believe to be true, but it's not for the purpose of shaming and guilting everybody in the family. Often I say begin on the edges. Don't start with the family high holiday or Thanksgiving or Christmas or other religious holiday celebration dinners or when families getting together. Don't start there. Begin individually or one-on-one and not confront the family as a whole. I think I've seen people do that before too, or they'll share with their mother some secret they've always, or some different perspective they've already seen. Mom, I've always thought you were wrong about not calling the police when Uncle Bob molested me. Don't do that right before a Thanksgiving meal, right while Mom's cooking and trying to do everything. It's unwise and not strategic. There are other ways to do that. If you want her to be a total mess, then do it then. If you want, but then we're wanting to punish and we're wanting to, and then there's other motives involved, and that's what we want to get away from. We want to get away from those other motives, which means unresolved feelings in me. Begin less direct, less confrontational or aggressive. Start to show your cards like using phrases like, I don't really see it that way. I had a different experience than you. I think it was much more complicated than that. It seems like there are some missing facts. The family had good points, but we had plenty of problems too. Then as people begin to question you, you have an opening to share how you saw or see it, and you can expand on those statements. All of these statements that I just mentioned are self-differentiating, while not shattering the front door. It's like going in the back door. Also, I may not need to confront somebody about the secret. When Mom shares, that vicious lie about Uncle Bob and him molesting someone, that was all just baloney. Well, Mom, I see that differently. I think it was more complicated than that. I would not agree with that description. I don't have to share with her exactly what my perspective is. I can just say, I am different. And she probably already knows that. She probably already knows there are some family members that don't hold to that truth. I'm just saying, I don't. But I'm not needing to make a big point of it. Let me tell you exactly what I believe what happened. There again, I'm back to trying to change Mom, change the family, change the childhood. You're wasting your time. But self-differentiating, saying, well, that's not how I saw it, or that's not what I believe, we can leave it at that, and I'm self-differentiating. And it generally tends to be more tolerable, rather than I'm just going to blow you out of the water. Focus on practicing, affirming, and building self-confidence of your reality and your truth about your family. When you share secrets from a place of neutrality, not reactivity, be matter of fact, not over serious. Work on staying calm. If I'm worked up, the system will get worked up in response and in reactivity, as I've shared before. Allow your family to distance from you and to feel threatened by you while they absorb the new you. Give them some breathing space, that it's okay that this is the new you, and they may feel touchy about that. Let them distance. Let them feel threatened or feel shamed or guilt for a little while, and stay calm, stay neutral. hey, I'm still here, and everything's going to be fine. However, and I do like the biblical passage of Ephesians 4:15, speak the truth in love. And that's really what I'm talking about the whole thing, and that's what family systems teaching is, speaking the truth. You want to speak your truth in love. You don't have to speak it in reactivity, because that's going to only hurt you and them too. When sharing family secrets or breaking the rule of shared secrets, Dr. Ronald Cohen says, balance caution with candor. He is a Bowen family systems expert as well, and I would advise you reading his article on secrets online, and you can look under his name, and I think you'll find information on that. I also believe it's more helpful to start sharing your truth and your reality in context. For example, Jerry, aren't you glad you had a wonderful childhood? Well, yes, and I would respond, in many ways it was, but Dad's alcoholism and abuse was a big part of my childhood too. Your dad was not an alcoholic, and you shouldn't talk about your dead father that way. That is just disrespectful, and I know your dad loved you, is what you would many times get. Well, Mom, it's not disrespectful to him or anyone that I admit he was an alcoholic and was abusive at times. And that was a part of my childhood as well. I realize you don't agree, or I realize you see it differently. That's okay, Mom. We can agree. We can disagree. I understand. When we let the cat out of the bag, or when we start to share ourselves as an authentic self and our authentic reality with no secrets and no, they can't know how I really feel, be confident, kind, neutral, self-affirming, and allow others to maintain their denial if they choose. Don't give your power away. Keep your power for yourself. Hold on to your reality and how you see it and saw it. No longer will denial be your way of seeing things. You will experience less guilt and less shame. A good book to read is Family Secrets, The Path to Self-Acceptance and Reunion by John Bradshaw. That's another good work for secrets. We must hold to the belief revealing a toxic or self-denying secret is not a betrayal or disloyalty or purposefully hurtful. That's what often families will send as a message as to why you shouldn't share those secrets. Believe instead, I love myself and my family enough not to keep this secret or their way of seeing things, that it's healthier for me and maybe for them in the long run, who knows, but at least for me to not see it the way they see things. Breaking family secrets does not cause illness, death, or magically cause bad things to happen to family members. Well, if you reveal that secret, Mom will have a heart attack. If you reveal that secret, all kinds of bad things will happen to our whole family. Those are myths. Often, 99% of the time, not true. Very rare that anything like that would happen. Resist the family rule. Don't tell anyone our business. Revealing issues does not shame the family in the broader community. It may trigger the family's inner shame, but that shame has been there probably for generations. The broader community doesn't give a hoot about your family and doesn't give a hoot about you. They've got their own family, their own lives they have to live. We often have a grandiosity where we think everybody's worrying about us. Nobody's worrying about you. They're living their own life any more than you worry about everybody in your neighborhood. You probably don't. You don't worry about everybody in your neighborhood's family. You've got to get on with your life. Breaking family rules is a large part of growing up and maturing and becoming more self-differentiated. We are not breaking family rules with any malice. And what we need to do is rehearse. with trusted others or a coach or a therapist you can feel confident in to help you practice what you're going to say and practice your responses. Don't share, reveal family secrets during a notable event, as I've mentioned, like a holiday, weddings, funerals, anniversaries. This will derail the secret revealing and attach it to an anniversary. Share your truths or your reality during a normal course of interaction with the family of origin. So what do we do when family members deny our reality? What responses can we give to them? And when they deny our own awareness? Here are some statements of reality that are reality denying statements from a mother to an adult son. They had had a confrontation, and actually a physical confrontation with with his mother, and his mother was inappropriate, and she's denying that any of that happened. Son, your skewed, exaggerated version of events is disturbing, to say the least. Whenever we share our reality, oftentimes there's resistance from the more denying or dysfunctional family members, and then we can respond at different levels depending upon how open we want to be and how much information we want to share. All of these levels are self-differentiation. They're just at different levels. One would be, well, Mom, I see it differently from you. And just respond simply, I see it differently. Level 2 would be maybe wanting to share more or feeling more confident in yourself or in your interaction with his mother. My version of events is the one I remember and experienced. I'm sure it's difficult to have me share my experience of them. And then number 3, maybe a more intense or a deeper sharing of, well, my view of things, Mom, has been disturbing for you and for the family for years. But I'm finally not going to change. We will have to agree to disagree. And another response that his mother made was, I'm deeply saddened and heartbroken by what you see as reality, which, by the way, did not happen and I didn't do. I did not yell, as you said. I didn't threaten you in front of the kids, as you said. He can respond, I'm sorry, we do not share the same facts. We will just have to agree to disagree. I don't think you would appreciate me trying to convince you about what happened. Well, if you're honest with yourself, Mom says, you will see my version of what happened is really what happened. My honesty is what brings me to my version of events, Mom. Even if I had done those things, which I didn't, I could understand why I might, because you had shunned me for months. Shunning you for months is no excuse for abuse, rejection, or even violence. Hopefully someday we can talk about what truly happened. Please don't accuse me of X and Y and Z. That's all just rubbish. Well, you may feel my version of what happened was rubbish, or is rubbish, but it doesn't change what happened. Or I think we'll just have to agree to disagree. Obviously, I love you and have always loved you, and I would never do what you have said I did. I do not share the same view of love as you, Mom. You may in fact love me, but that doesn't change what happened. You never lived in my shoes or knew what I went through. I will never be able to live in anyone else's shoes, Mom, only my own. You may have gone through a lot with Dad, who is abusive to you and to us kids, but this does not justify your behavior 2 months ago. Son, I don't know why a prayer card I sent to you is so offensive to you. The card was, Mom, the card was only filled with religious words. I would prefer a relationship with you and not your faith. You are free to have your faith, but I have asked you not to send cards and letters with only religious content. I'm sure you would not appreciate me sending you a Muslim content card or a Buddhist content card or an atheist content card. only and just signing love your son. I'm sure, Mom, you wouldn't appreciate that. Life is too short, and I needed to say these things before I die or become demented. I will always love you, and I forgive you for all the pain you've caused me, Mom says. I hope you feel better sharing these things. I disagree with many of the things you have shared. I see things quite differently than you do. You may experience pain and probably have for many years. I do not believe I'm the creator, the author, or cause of that pain, Mom. Another example in which there can be things happening that are not to be talked about. Mom would hold up the meal until all of her kids were there, except she does not do that for my husband, Mom says, I've never treated your husband disrespectfully. I was just busy and felt we needed to eat. When actually at every dinner she doesn't wait on Janet's husband, but she'll wait on all the other siblings' husbands before they start eating, but not Janet's. Mom, that is not how I see it. You would never do that for any of the kids in the family or their spouses. Don't ever do that again regarding my husband. Or you may not have noticed that your behavior changes when it involves John, my husband, Janet says, and the family meals. But I noticed I'm not happy. But I noticed and I am not happy. You may have been busy. You may have felt we needed to eat. However, I request that you treat all spouses equally. Well, I didn't know it was so important to you or that you would be so touchy about it. My husband is important to me, and I do not feel touchy. I believe what happened was out of the ordinary for our family, and yes, it does bother me. I would ask for family meals. We then choose not to wait on anyone's spouse to eat, or we'll wait on everyone's spouse to eat. This is not about me feeling ouchy about it. It's only about fairness and respect. I hope I can count on your support, Mom. I've given you some examples and responses. I work with people all the time to practice their responses and practice self-differentiation in real life situations. If you need help learning how to share your truth and your reality with your family, if you want help in breaking the shared secrets, and those shared secrets you've had for many years with them, please contact me. You can contact me at 317-919-6264 in the U.S. or at my email address, jerrywise5@gmail.com. I hope you'll check out my new website, jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com.